The second season of our series starts with a dramatic scene. Hari is shown arguing with himself, which means he's struggling with his own thoughts and feelings. The scene then cuts to Gaal and Salvor, who are talking about Gaal's life. Gaal tells Salvor that she's trapped Hari inside a special tool called the Prime Radiant. This tool can predict the future, and it's shown that a big crisis is coming that could make humanity's problems worse. Hari is trying to escape from the Prime Radiant, but it's not easy. The Prime Radiant is like a person to him, and it looks like his late wife Gaal, who was a math professor. Meanwhile, Day and Demerzel are spending time together, but their happiness is short-lived. They're attacked by people wearing masks, and Day gets hurt because his protective shield isn't working properly. Demerzel fights back and defeats the attackers, but they both get badly injured. After getting treated, Day thinks that the attack was planned by someone close to him. He's so angry that he kills his head of security and orders an investigation into everyone around him. He then talks to Dawn and asks if he and Dusk were behind the attack because they don't want Day to get married. For the first time in the Empire's history, the Emperor Day has decided to do something unusual. He wants to get married and have a child. This shows how much the Emperors have changed from their original purpose. The problem is that Day's decision to have a child means that there won't be a need for a new clone of him to take over as Emperor. This worries Dawn and Dusk, who are opposed to the marriage because it would mean the end of the clone line. Day has chosen a queen named Seraph from a powerful planet to be his wife. She arrives in Cheshire with her entourage and her right-hand woman, Rule. Day proposes to Seraph, but she's not entirely sure about accepting. Seraph is an ambitious woman who wants to build a great empire of her own. She's not afraid of the empire, and she seems to have her own plans. As a sign of their engagement, Day and Seraph exchange gifts. However, before they can discuss their plans further, Demerzel interrupts them and asks them to follow her. Demerzel shows Day and Seraph a recording of a soldier asking for help after being attacked by the Anacreon 138 years ago. She explains that Hari's foundation has been growing strong for a century and that the outer planets are joining forces to create a powerful army. She suggests that they attack Terminus, but her advisors recommend waiting and gathering more information. Day agrees with Demerzel's advisors and orders a further investigation into the Foundation's plans and why they've been quiet for so long. He wants to know exactly what they're planning before taking any action. Meanwhile, back on Synax, Gaal and Salvor decide to leave the planet before a massive storm destroys their raft. They jump into the water and use a device to propel themselves back to the surface. However, their ship is still not functional and they're stranded. Just as they're trying to figure out what to do, Hari suddenly appears on the ship. He's managed to escape from his prison in the Prime Radiant. Gaal is shocked to see him, and Hari confronts her, shouting that he's been conscious for 138 years while she slept in her pod. Hari tells Gaal that being trapped in the Prime Radiant was torture, and Gaal apologizes for not knowing that would happen to him. She then explains that the plan to create a new society has gone off course, and a new crisis is coming. She also reveals that the second foundation, which Hari had created as a secret backup plan, no longer exists. Hari had wanted the second foundation as a way to ensure that his plan for a new society would still work, even if the first foundation was destroyed in a war with the Empire. He believed that if the first foundation won the war, they would eventually become just as corrupt as the Empire, and that the second foundation was necessary to prevent that from happening. Gaal then opens the Prime Radiant and shows Hari when the next crisis is coming. They remember that Gaal has the ability to see the future, and she tries to use the Prime Radiant to see the crisis. However, this doesn't work. Gaal then realizes that every time she's had a vision of the future, it was when she was in a state of near drowning. She thinks that maybe she needs to be in a similar state to access her visions again. So she simulates the experience by sucking all the oxygen out of the room. Gaal uses the Prime Radiant to see 150 years into the future. She finds herself in a world where the Empire has fallen, and she's captured by a man who calls himself the Mule. The Mule starts choking Gaal and asks her where the second foundation is, and also asks her where Hober is. Before Gaal returns to the present, she's able to gather some information from the Mule. She tells Hari and Salvor what she saw, and reveals that the Mule knew she was from the past and was trying to get information about someone called Holbrook. Gaal also reveals that she was able to look inside the Mule's mind and get the name Evanesh, which is a planet. They figure out that there must be an answer on Evanesh and set course for the planet. Meanwhile, Queen Sereth is invited to join the Emperors for dinner. She asks Dawn how he feels about Day's upcoming marriage, and Dawn says he's glad to get a sister. However, Sereth points out that if Day marries, Dawn won't be the king. Dawn responds by saying that he, Day, and Dusk are all the same person, implying that they're clones or identical entities. On the planet Terminus, we see that the army has become stronger and a new religion has emerged, with Hari being worshipped as a prophet. The leaders of Terminus gather to visit the vault, where Hari is supposed to be. The warden approaches the vault, hoping to meet Hari, but Hari doesn't come out. The warden tries to get into the vault, but before he can, he's suddenly lifted into the air and utters the name Hober before burning to death. Back on the ship, Salvor finds Gaal crying and asks her what's wrong. Gaal reveals that she traveled to the future and saw Salvor dead beside her. This is a disturbing revelation that suggests that Salvor's fate is already sealed. Next, we see Gaal, Salvor, and Hari arriving on the planet Una. Gaal and Salvor thought they were going to Ignis, but Hari had secretly changed the destination. Hari explains that the Prime Radiant told him to come to Una, and he and Gaal set out to a specific location. They walk up a mountain and find a closed gate, which Gaal tries to open. After a brief moment, the door on Una suddenly opens, and Gaal and Hari see Kala on the other side. Kala uses her powers to teleport Hari to her side and then closes the door, leaving Gaal behind. Meanwhile, on Terminus, a cleric named Polly is searching for a man named Hober, who is known for his scams. Polly travels to the planet Coral with his disciple Constant, but when they arrive, they find that Hober has been caught and is about to be executed for trying to scam the ruler. Just as Hober is about to be killed, he uses a teleportation device to escape and tries to steal Polly's ship. However, Polly and Constant are able to capture Hober, and they all escape from Coral. In a separate storyline, Demerzel arrives at the capital prison to free General Bell, who was imprisoned for disobeying orders. Demerzel believes that Bell is a skilled general and convinces Day to give him a second chance. Day agrees to send Bell to the outer planets to investigate the Foundation, a mysterious organization that is rumored to be planning something big. Demerzel asks General Bell to come with her, but he refuses, saying that he doesn't want to work for the person who sentenced him to prison. Demerzel knows that Bell is not afraid of death, so she reveals a secret to change his mind. She tells him that his husband, Glawen, is actually alive, and that Bell was told he was dead as part of his punishment. If Bell agrees to come back to work, he will get to see Glawen again. Bell is convinced by this offer and agrees to meet with Day, who gives him his assignment. As promised, Bell finds Glawen waiting for him in the next room, and the two are reunited for a brief moment. Bell then gets cleaned up and puts on his uniform and joins his fleet, where he is warmly welcomed by his crew. Meanwhile, back on Una, Gaal is walking back to the ship when she meets up with Salvor. They discuss what to do next and decide to leave. However, when Salvor tries to start the ship, the floor breaks and they fall down a hole. There, they find mining robots coming from the depths of the planet. Salvor manages to escape the hole just in time, and they prepare to leave the planet. However, before they depart, they detect a human pulse on the ship's radar, which is impossible since no humans are supposed to be on the planet. Gaal figures out that the pulse is coming from Hari, and she convinces Salvor to drive back to the mountain to find him. They arrive at a monument and find Hari knocked out but alive with human flesh. They also see the robots approaching, and Gaal jumps out of the ship to grab Hari before he gets crushed. She manages to get him back to the ship safely. Meanwhile, Polly, Constant, and Hober arrive at Terminus and go to the vault, which is still open. They meet Director Sarmith, who was waiting for them, and Hober is told to enter the vault. However, he refuses when he sees the ashes of the warden. Suddenly, he gets sucked into the vault and disappears. Constant follows him, and Polly and Sarmith follow her. They find Hober wandering around, thirsty and hungry, and he tells them that he's been there for 2 years. They realize that time passes differently in the vault. As they explore the vault, they come across a library, and suddenly Hari appears behind them and greets them. Hari tells Polly, Constant, and Sarmith that their next mission is to prevent a war between the Foundation and the Empire. He orders them to go to Terminus and offer peace and friendship with the Empire. Hari explains that the Empire has lost control of the outer planets, and 7 of those planets have joined the Foundation. He suggests that they can use this as leverage to create peace. Hari sends out the 3 of them, but keeps Hober behind. He tells Hober that he has a special mission for him, but doesn't reveal what it is. Meanwhile, General Bell's fleet arrives outside the planet, and she decides to go undercover to gather information. She and her team disguise themselves as locals and land on the planet. They're looking for an informant named Dukum, but they lose the device that would allow them to jump back to their ship. They track down the device, which has been captured by scavengers. They try to negotiate with the scavengers, but when that doesn't work, they kill them all, except for one who escapes to get reinforcements. With time running out, Bell and her team rush to Dukum's home and meet with him. Dukum has been on the planet for decades, gathering evidence. He shows them a region of the Foundation and reveals that the clerics use a reconstructed Emperor's shield to show people magic and convince them them to join the Foundation. Dukem tells Bell and her team about a mysterious ship that the Foundation controls. He says that he's never seen it before, but people claim that the Foundation doesn't even use jumpers to control it. Suddenly, the house alarm goes off, and dozens of people are approaching the house. Dukem shows Bell a secret exit, but before they leave, he asks them to kill him. He knows that if the Foundation catches him, they'll torture him. Bell shoots Dukem in the head, and they escape back to their ship. Meanwhile, on Trantor, Sareth and Dawn go for a walk in a secluded area where they can talk in private. Sareth asks Dawn if he killed her family so that he could marry her. Sareth was a low-level princess on her planet, but after her family died in a crash, she became the queen. She suspects that Dawn's family was behind the crash because none of her family members would have agreed to marry him. Dawn thinks that if she marries a man with no leadership experience, she'll be able to easily control him. Meanwhile, Sareth and Rue secretly meet with a guard named Markley and bribe him to find out if they really killed her family and how they survived an attack. Next, we see Hari having a dream about the day he told Wright to kill him, and he feels guilty about letting people die. To make sure he's really awake, he cuts his hand. The next day, Hari, Gaal, and Salvor arrive at a place called Ignis Orbit, but their ship is hit by a strange energy field and crashes in the forest. Hari and Gaal go to fix the ship, while Salvor goes to investigate who attacked them. She follows footprints in the woods and catches a hooded figure, but when the person reveals themselves, it's her boyfriend Hugo, who was supposed to be dead. Salvor is confused and surprised. Hugo explains to Salvor that he used a special pod to wake up at the same time as her, and they share a romantic moment. However, Hari is suspicious of Hugo and refuses to let him on the ship, despite Salvor's attempts to explain that he's her boyfriend. Just as Gaal is about to warn Salvor about the suspicious people on the radar, the fake Hugo reveals his true identity, grabs Salvor, and his group breaks into the ship, knocking out Hari, Gaal, and Salvor using mind control. Meanwhile, on Trantor, Sareth is trying to investigate what happened on the night of the attack. She pretends to offer to sleep with Day, but really she's just trying to gather information. However, things get awkward when she realizes she doesn't actually want to go through with it. Day accuses her of trying to assassinate him, but Sareth claims she was just trying to make sure she's safe. Day, who accused Sareth of trying to assassinate him, decides to forgive her and even proposes to her in the middle of a fight. He then kicks her out of his bedroom and meets with Demerzel, who tells him not to worry about Sareth's family's deaths being linked to him. However, it's revealed that he actually did kill Sareth's family. Sareth returns to Rue without any new information, but with the news of her engagement. Meanwhile, Markley finds a memory footage of one of the doctors, which shows that they were experimenting with human flesh and had removed it from the mirrors. This is shocking because it was thought that human flesh had been eliminated from the galaxy. Back on Ignis, Hari, Gaal, and Salvor wake up to find themselves in a prison, but the door is open. They follow the road and find a community of telepaths led by a woman named Tellum. Tellum explains that she ambushed them because she didn't know if they were a threat. She then reveals that Salvor and Gaal have some kind of telepathic powers, which is why they were drawn to the planet. Tellum apologizes to Salvor for tricking her and tells her to rest until the next day. However, in private, Tellum orders her men to find the Radiant, likely a reference to the Second Foundation, and plans to destroy it to prevent its formation. Meanwhile, Salvor wakes up from a bad dream and uses her telepathic abilities to see and feel the thoughts and emotions of other telepaths. She witnesses a traumatic event where people with telepathic abilities are being hunted and killed, but then sees Tellum saving them and bringing them to Ignis. The next day, Salvor, Hari, and Gaal meet with Tellum, who shares Gaal's vision with them. She warns them that a powerful telepath named Mula will rise up and destroy what she has built for her people. Later, Tellum meets with Gaal in private and reveals that she believes Gaal is smarter and more powerful than she realizes. Tellum proposes to train Gaal and make her the leader of the people, with the goal of stopping Mula's rise and preventing Salvor's death. Tellum offers to train Gaal and make her the leader of the telepathic community, but only if Hari leaves the planet. This creates tension between Gaal and Hari. Meanwhile, on Trantor, Day makes a public announcement that he's ending the genetic dynasty, which causes fear among Dusk and Dawn. Sareth gives a passionate speech, upstaging Day and showing her determination to serve the people. Polly and Constant, representatives of the Foundation, arrive on Trantor and are given a visitor's pass. However, they're later captured by the Empire's guards and put into custody. Back on Ignis, Gaal shares Tellum's offer with Hari, but he accuses Salvor of controlling her. Gaal seems to be torn between her loyalty to Hari and her desire to work with Tellum. When Hari gets angry and argues with Gaal, he suddenly stops and leaves the area, possibly due to his own powers or influence. Salvor follows Hari and asks him what's wrong, but Hari just tells her to hide the Prime Radiant from Tellum. Salvor is confused and goes back to Gaal. They're talking when they hear the ship starting up. They go outside and see Hari driving away, but it's not the real Hari. The real Hari is tied up in a lake, captured by Tellum. him. Telem reveals that she only cares about saving her own kind. She wants to train Gaal to be her successor and stop the Second Foundation. She orders Hari to be killed by drowning. As Hari is drowning, the scene cuts to a flashback of his past. In the flashback, we see Hari as a young scientist on his home planet. He's working on the Prime Radiant in psychohistory. His boss is worried about what he's doing, but Hari is excited to share his ideas with his colleague Ayana. They fall in love and get married. Ayana is also a scientist, and they work together on the Prime Radiant. As they work, they create a prototype of the Prime Radiant. They're happy and excited about their discovery. One day, Ayana walks into Hari's office while he's arguing with his boss. Hari and Ayana are offered a job as professors on Trantor. Hari is suspicious of the Empire's intentions, so he hides the Prime Radiant prototype and refuses to go to Trantor. But his boss, who is trying to find the Prime Radiant, kidnaps Ayana and accidentally kills her. Hari discovers Ayana's death when a necklace she gave him starts blinking. Hari is consumed by anger and grief, and he takes revenge by killing his boss. This event changes Hari, and he becomes determined to fulfill his plan for the Foundation. He goes to Trantor on his own and starts working on his plan. Back in the present, Hari is struggling to breathe as he's drowning in the lake. He's getting close to death, and his body is fully engulfed in the water. Meanwhile, Day and Demerzel are discussing what to do with Polly and Constant, who are being held captive. They also talk about the upcoming marriage between Day and Sereth. Demerzel asks Day if he's having second thoughts about the marriage and ending the genetic dynasty. Day is scared about making this decision, but he decides to go through with it and is ready to get serious about the marriage. Demerzel refuses to take Sereth to the lab for inspection and testing, but demands that the rest of the test be done later. When they're alone, Demerzel reveals to Sareth that she's the one who killed her family and friends, and threatens to do the same to her and her loved ones if she ever misbehaves again. Meanwhile, Hober has arrived at the mothership of the Spacers, a group of genetically modified humans who operate jump ships. He's captured by their leader, but offers them a deal. The Foundation has found a way to produce openness, a drug that keeps the Spacers alive, and if they join the Foundation, they can have as much of it as they want. This would free them from the Empire's control. However, the leader of the Spacers is not ready to betray the Empire yet, and she takes Hober to meet with General Bell. Bell has been searching for the Whisper ship, which Hober was using, and he forces Hober to open it. Hober escapes from General Bell and Day, thanks to a protector on the Whisper ship that attaches to them. Day after shown the footage, and he finally brings Polly and Constant to the palace, where Polly offers peace and asks for recognition from the Empire. However, Day is not interested and refuses the offer. Just then, a hologram of Hari appears in front of Constant, revealing that Hari had implanted a chip in Constant's head when they met. Hari presents himself to Day and offers the same deal as before, confidently arguing that the Foundation will win if war breaks out. Day is not impressed and destroys the chip. Meanwhile, Sereth meets with Dawn in private and reveals that she knows they killed her parents. She offers her eggs to Dawn and suggests that he fertilize them, saying that his DNA is identical to Day's and no one would ever know. Dawn is hesitant, fearing that they will kill him if they find out, but Sereth convinces him with a romantic kiss. Back on Ignis, Salvor is feeling uneasy about the situation and discovers that Laura is lying to her. She decides to investigate on her own and checks the boat's history to find its last location. However, she finds that the location has been erased, but she also discovers a recovered navigation log. Just as she's about to steal the boat, Gaal arrives and stops her. Gaal tells Salvor to trust her and not to do anything that will get her in trouble. She takes Salvor back to their room, but Salvor sneaks out later that night and drives the boat to its last location. When she arrives, she finds Hari's body in the water and tries to untie him. However, Telem appears behind her and knocks her out, causing Salvor to start drowning. The scene then cuts to Rue going through Demerzel's belongings, where she finds some information that suggests Demerzel has been threatening Sereth. She's caught by Dusk, but she convinces him to investigate further with her in the morning. Day broadcasts a special program to the entire galaxy, where he sentences Polly and Constant to death. He wants to instill fear into the hearts of everyone watching. He gives a speech about the Foundation's plans, and then asks Sereth to choose who dies first, but she refuses to answer. Day then chooses to kill Constant first, but just as he's about to do so, Hober's ship appears out of nowhere and creates a distraction. Hober grabs Constant and jumps back into his ship, but Polly is still captured by the Empire. Everyone is slightly hurt from the jump, and Dusk asks Day to declare war on the Foundation. But Day surprises everyone by saying that he actually wants to meet with them and decides to go to Terminus. He leaves Dawn in charge and takes Demerzel with him. Meanwhile, Hober and Constant make it to a safe space, and Constant proposes that they have sex, which catches Hober off guard. But he accepts, and after their awkward lovemaking, Hober gets up to get some wine. However, he discovers that his ship is surrounded and disabled by General Bell's fleet. Back on Ignis, Gaal is searching for Salvor and asks Tellum where she is. Tellum tells Gaal that she had to put Salvor in prison because she found out that Tellum killed Hari. Gaal then finds herself in prison, where there are special materials that block her from using her powers. A young boy named Josiah witnesses Gaal's imprisonment and decides to help her. He tells her that she's going to be sacrificed in a ritual and that he wants to help her escape. Salvor uses the Prime Meridian, a device she was hiding, to break into the vault where Hari is being kept. Inside the vault, Salvor finds Hari and tells him about Gaal and the other Hari. Hari realizes that he's just a distraction to keep the Foundation motivated, and that the main Hari is creating the Foundation in secret. The Hari in the vault decides to help Salvor by telling her how to disable the devices that are blocking her powers. Salvor uses this information to escape the prison. Meanwhile, Gaal is brought to the ritual site, where Tellum explains that she has been taking the powers of special girls every few decades to become more powerful and immortal. Tellum starts the ritual, and Gaal struggles to escape. Back on Trantor, Rue continues their investigation and discovers a secret room within the palace. Inside the room, they find a hologram of the first Cleon, which is a surprising discovery. At the same time, Dawn and Sereth meet in secret to discuss their next move. Sereth starts to realize that the emperors might not be in power, and that Demerzel is actually the true ruler of the empire. She thinks that Demerzel might be creating and controlling the emperors, erasing their memories to keep them in line. We see a flashback of the first Cleon as a young boy, exploring the palace and stumbling upon a hidden room. Inside, he finds Demerzel, who is 18,000 years old, trapped in a mirror. Over the years, Demerzel tells the young Cleon stories about her past and the times before him. They become close, and the young Cleon eventually becomes the emperor. As the emperor grows old and has no children to inherit the throne, he decides to release Demerzel from her prison. He puts a chip in her that makes her loyal to him, and instructs her to clone him and erase the clone's memories so they won't know about their true nature. Back in the present, the Cleon hologram finishes telling the story and locks Rue and their companions in the prison. He notifies Demerzel, who has arrived at the Terminus orbit as planned. Demerzel decides to go down to the planet and talk to the people. Day and Demerzel arrive at Terminus and meet with Director Sarmek. However, Day becomes enraged when he discovers that the church is actually a secret factory for making weapons. He stabs Sarmek and orders his soldiers to kill everyone in the church. Day then makes his way to Hari's vault, where he is met by Hari himself. Day gives Hari one chance to stop the war by denouncing his math and declaring psychohistory false. However, Hari refuses, saying that his math is correct and he cannot lie about it. Day becomes impatient and orders General Bell to attack the Invictus and Glawen with elite teams. He then takes a ship and starts attacking the Invictus himself. The crew on the Invictus tries to fight back, but they are no match for the Empire's armies. Lee, one of Day's soldiers, takes out the Invictus's defenses, but is hit and falls to the planet's surface. Meanwhile, Salvor arrives at the ritual just in time to stop Tellum from taking over Gaal's body. She disrupts the ritual using the blocking devices and manages to escape with Gaal back to their ship. Tellum was waiting for Salvor and Gaal, and a fierce battle ensues. Salvor fights off Glawen, but then has to face off against Tellum, who is too powerful for her and Gaal to handle. Just as Tellum is about to kill them, Hari appears and kills her. Back on Terminus, Day orders General Bell to crash the Invictus onto the planet, destroying it and killing everyone on board. Bell and Glawen share a tearful goodbye before Bell shoots down the Invictus and drives it into Terminus, causing widespread destruction and fire. Later, Gaal explains to Salvor that she had actually saved Hari from drowning using her telepathic powers, and had disguised another guard as Hari to throw off their pursuers. The people of Ignis, now free from Tellum's mind control, celebrate Gaal's heroism and invite her, Salvor, and Hari to a celebration feast. However, the celebration is short-lived, as Josia, who is still under Tellum's control, grabs a gun and shoots Gaal. Salvor jumps in the way and takes 2 shots, which fatally wound her. Gaal tries to save Salvor, but it's too late, and Salvor dies in her arms. Meanwhile, Demerzel arrives on Trantor alone, responding to a signal. She finds Dusk and Rue in the prison, and after hearing the story of the first Cleon, Dusk offers to free her from her programming by removing the chip. However, Demerzel warns him that if he tries, her program will force her to kill him. She reveals that she was the one who sent the assassins to stop the marriage, and that she plans to frame Scarrett for the attempt. Demerzel then kills both Dusk and Rue after Dusk gives her a last kiss. On the Empress fleet, Day is not satisfied with the destruction of Terminus and orders Bell to jump to the other 7 planets and destroy them as well. However, Bell is horrified by the order and refuses to carry it out. Instead, he takes charge and orders the spacer to jump to mid-space, which would destroy the ship ship and everyone on board. Hober then reveals that the Spacers had agreed with his proposal to destroy the Empire's fleet and that they would use Hari's plan to their advantage. The Spacers would bring their fleet to the location and the Empire's fleet would be destroyed. Day becomes enraged and starts beating up Hober, but Bell intervenes and joins the fight. After an intense fistfight, Bell emerges victorious and kills Day. Bell and Hober then take Constant to an escape pod and release her into space, hoping she can find refuge. As the ship explodes, Bell and Hober share a drink in the command room, accepting their fate. Meanwhile, Constant's escape pod drifts through space until it reaches the vault, where she is sucked in and finds Polly. Hari reveals that he had saved everyone from Terminus by putting them in the vault. Back on Terminus, the news of Day's death spreads, and Demerzel orders her people to get serious. However, Dawn has already escaped with Sereth and returns to the cloning lab, where he releases another set of clones, including Dawn, Day, and Dusk. Demerzel checks their memories and then opens the Prime Radiant, which she had taken from Day. She reveals that something great is coming. On Ignis, Hari and Gaal hold a funeral for Salvor and discuss their next plan. They decide to return to their stasis pods and wait for 150 years. The people of Ignis put them in the pods and they fall asleep. The scene then jumps 152 years into the future, where we see the Mule, a character who is frightened by Gaal. The season ends with the Mule deciding to find and kill Gaal before she can find him. Thanks for tuning in, guys.